Welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy podcast. I'm Ani Anderson.
And I'm Brian Trzaskos. Join us as we explore the science
and art of trauma-sensitive somatic practices and tools.
Strengthen your practice as a coach, therapist, or holistic professional.
Master the art of motivating even the most challenging clients when you understand how to tap into and unlock your client's complete holistic intelligence.
If you want to learn the most cutting-edge, research-supported skills for personal and professional mastery, you've come to the right place. Let's get this conversation started.
Hi, and welcome to the Somatic Coaching Academy podcast. Hi there, Brian.
Hello, Ani.
I'm excited to dive into our Q&As again. We have a new group of people we're talking about today who have some questions for us.
Yeah, this is episode number 2 in our series of our 4-part series of top questions. Ta-da! Top question series. Okay, so who are we talking to this week? So this is the top 10 questions that new wellness coaches have about somatic coaching.
So let's just say, yes, you should.
Yeah.
See you next time. Sorry. Okay. Yes.
Yes. Exactly. All right. So wellness. So wellness coaches. Let's talk about wellness coaches. So who do wellness coaches work with? Where do we find them? Let's just kind of define wellness coaches before we jump in here.
Yeah. Well, I think we can probably extrapolate the wellness coaches a little bit too. I don't know if you would agree with me. We have people who are nutrition coaches and fitness coaches. We have people who are working in their own private practice. We have people who are working in wellness centers. We also have people who are working in organizations. And these people are primarily, obviously working on people's health and wellness.
Yep. Yeah. So they can end up in a lot of different places using kind of a lot of different skill sets and still calling themselves wellness coaches.
Yeah. And so, doing additional certifications with us would be kind of like getting your master's degree. People might think, well, don't I already have the tools? Yeah, you have amazing tools. They're so great. And I'm sure you make a huge impact with your work. Thank you for doing what you do. Studying with us will help you to, like I said, have a master's degree at helping people to overcome resistance to change and things like that. And I know we have questions. I'm going to get on it just real quick. I think that's one of the things that we see with people who come in and are talking to us is they do great work and they actually usually have had some kind of substantial personal transformation to even get into the wellness coaching fields that they are in. One of the biggest challenges we usually see is that with your clients, you can't always get them to change. You can't always get them to help themselves. That becomes one of the hardest things that I think we see with the students who are coming in. And the reason why they would study with us, because at the end of your certification programs, no matter which one you're taking, you actually can get more profound results with your clients, better case studies, better testimonials, better client results, better referrals, and things like that. So it's really fulfilling and it really helps to grow your business.
Okay. That may be the answer to some of the questions. So I don't know what they are yet, but let's jump in. Okay. So the first question is, what are some entry-level somatic coaching techniques I can learn without advanced training? So pump the brakes here for a second. Let's just pump the brakes because we do get this question a lot. And
it usually comes in the flavor of, give me a hot tip I can do right now.
And so before saying anything else, I just want to kind of reframe this for a second. It's kind of like asking a surgical student, like a med student, if a med student who is practicing to be a surgeon said, listen, what surgical techniques can I do with people right now before
today,
I'm a full surgeon?
I really like how you're framing this, actually.
Because literally, like a surgeon, you're like, hey, how can I cut through somebody's skin?
Right.
And
we would never ask that, but yet we get this question all the time. It's really similar, actually.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, so that's how we approach the question. Some people ask the question, we kind of just pause for a second and say, okay, so just so you know, like asking that question, it's kind of like you're probing into somebody's space, into their being, into their soma. And a lot of stuff can happen when you do that. So we have a plan. And our plan is we specifically parse out somatic, our sensation-based motivation coaching, core centering, cross-mapping tools in a way, level 1, level 2, level 3 through our program, so that you are really supported in making sure that you are safe, and that you, and more importantly, and especially that your clients are safe.
100%.
And so we parse it out that way, so that it's in a very thoughtful manner that you can begin working with people without doing harm for folks.
Right, because in each one of those programs, we're talking about trauma and different levels of trauma, working with trauma, and you've got to be a part of that conversation before you start just taking tools and throwing them around.
Yeah, yeah. So just in a really just brief way, what are some entry level tools? Well, the very first step, our level 1 training are really focused on what we call somatic practice essentials. So you're working with things that you may already be doing a little bit of, a little bit of self-massage practices, some mindful movement practices, some breath work practices, some meditation practices. That all falls under the category of what we call our core centering certification, because we do it in a certain way, and we do it in a certain way that unlocks the nervous system in a very specific sequence, if you will, in order to get a more profound result. So those are really the first tools. And we also do it in a trauma sensitive framework to make sure, as you're doing those things with people, you're decreasing the likelihood of re-traumatizing someone's nervous system. So those are kind of like, those are the entry level tools. Level 2, we go into our somatic transformation fundamentals program, where you are learning more more trauma sensitive, body focused, interoceptive kind of learning, where we're kind of getting more into the sensory system itself, where we're starting to work with what we call our cross mapping process, both for emotional and for physical issues. So now we're really kind of working deeper into a person's energy system in a more specific way in level 2. And then level 3, we're really starting to bring in, again, more work in the energy system for sure, through inquiry and somatic processing and those sorts of things as we go farther along. So you can see that if you just jump to level 3, there's a high likelihood you can actually cause re-traumatization for somebody. That's why we start in that level 1 stuff, so that as you're working with people, you help preparing their nervous system for the deeper work.
And you're going to do the work as well as learning how to do, things with other people, so that you get to experience in your own body.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So next question. Ready for the next question?
Yes.
All right. It is. How does somatic coaching differ from traditional wellness coaching, and why is it valuable?
It's been my experience that a lot of when we use the word traditional, usually we're talking about more of a top-down approach anyway. It's been my experience through working with wellness professionals, and also, having the student body, our student body, that people are using a lot of top-down approaches. Even when we think we're using bottom-up approaches, we're usually using top-down approaches. So one of the biggest ways it actually in the Somatic Coaching Academy, because it's different wherever you are, right? But here we do teach bottom-up approaches, and we also teach quite a bit of integration, depending on what program you're taking, in top-down, bottom-up, so that people are really taking a fully integrated approach.
Yeah. When I think about traditional wellness coaching, and again, I talked about this in the last podcast too. We have to sometimes qualify what we're talking about with traditional. So we're making some assumptions here. I think Ani made the assumption it's a top-down methodology. I would agree with that assumption as we're talking about it. The other assumption that we make with traditional wellness is that we're trying to use rationalization in order to help someone change their behavior. So if you think about wellness coaching, it's like, say we're doing weight loss coaching, which I think would fall underneath wellness, right? Yep. And oftentimes we're trying to convince somebody, okay, so calories in, calories out, you need to do that to help your weight. Does that make sense? And you're like, yeah, it makes sense. And then it makes sense. And then we go out and we don't do what makes sense, apparently. And we just figure out, why can't I get myself to actually make that change? Because our conscious mind, our rational mind, is actually not making our decisions for us.
Yeah,
our subconscious mind is making the decisions. And so lots of times people on wellness programs and wellness coaches both can get very frustrated with themselves, which we want to guard against that, because that actually can create more self-defeatism, shame, and guilt, which just gets in the way and creates more of a problem for people when we're using traditional or rational approaches that aren't getting the effect that we want. A lot of people just think that they're helpless and hopeless. And that's not true. That's
Yep.
not true. So somatic coaching, we kind of get under the hood and work directly with the subconscious mind, which goes kind of deeper than the traditional methods. And as Ani pointed out in, I think in our opening, is that we see the somatic coaching that we do as a master's degree. So not everybody wants to get their master's degree, but some people really want to get their master's degree to be able to help people more deeply. That's what we're doing here.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right. Next question. Will a somatic coaching certification make me more credible and help build my client base?
So we talked about this a little bit in the last podcast as well. I got we answered it a little bit differently than I'm going to answer it. Listen to that one too. And I'm going to say yes with wellness coaches. To be honest with you, I've seen this happen. I think one of the things that can happen through the course of the certification programs here at the Somatic Coaching Academy, especially with wellness professionals, is it actually helps them to feel and look and be and present themselves even more like a professional. In the last podcast, we were talking to established coaches and established therapists who already see themselves as professionals. But one of the biggest things that we see with students who are already wellness professionals, wellness coaches in particular, is they don't always have a thriving established business. They don't always see themselves as a professional. And through the course of working with us here in any of the levels, but specifically in level 1 and level 3, you're going to come out of there really feeling like a pro.
Yeah. Yeah. And getting better results. I think that's really what comes to me because, the question is, will a certification help me be more credible? Well, yeah, that's what certifications are for, right?
Sure.
They show that we learn something, that we tested out on something, that we have competencies in something, and that inherently makes us more credible.
They don't necessarily translate.
Exactly. What translates is how effective we are. Because when we're more effective, then that will start to word of mouth happens. We get better referrals.
Case studies, testimonials.
Yeah, like, and trust starts to happen.
Confidence. And then we put ourselves out there in different ways. We're more excited to reach more people.
Yeah. So will a certification help you be more credible? Probably. Will it help you build your client base? Not necessarily. I really think that comes from high effectiveness and great competency and mastery with the skills.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So how can I use somatic coaching to help clients who feel disconnected from their bodies?
Well, that's kind of an obvious one because somatics is a body focused thing. So of course they would. I think one of the main ways that we see that happen and rather quickly here is through our level 1 program with core centering practices. I mean, it happens in any of the programs, but core centering practices really laser in on helping people to get more connected with their bodies. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would 100% say, and I would also add to that by saying, if you're working with clients who are disconnected from their bodies, that the feature of being disconnected from your body or dissociation is a core indicator of trauma. So if you're working with people who are disconnected from their bodies and you're not trauma informed and more importantly, trauma sensitive trained, then be careful.
Absolutely.
Be careful because you can stir up things for people, then you're not able to actually help people navigate and work through. So if you're working with people with disconnection, make sure you have that trauma sensitive training.
It's really interesting to see how this comes up too, because sometimes clients will self-identify I'm disconnected from my body. Sometimes the coach or the therapist will have a observation that they feel like the client is. I just had a really clear example of this come up this week, actually, where a client was telling me that she didn't realize she could stop eating because she didn't recognize body cues that she was full. And that requires body awareness. And so that's just a really good example of how it could be showing up in the body. And you might not obviously click in on it, but when clients say stuff like that, you can, oh, wow, they are probably pretty disconnected from their bodies. And it was a good thing, actually, that I had the trauma sensitivity. And I knew that I did because I delved into, it wasn't actually that conversation, but as we continued on with the coaching session, some stuff came up with neglect in the history that, I could totally handle through the sensation work that we were doing.
Yeah. So there you go. Okay. Next question. Can I combine somatic coaching with mindfulness practices in my sessions?
Well, mindfulness is really a core part of what we do
Exactly. Here. Yeah. I mean, so yes, because if you're doing any somatic practices, somatic skills, somatic tools, none of those work without mindfulness.
Yeah.
Mindfulness is a core component of all of those things.
And you might be wondering, if I already do some mindfulness, will any of this help me? And I would say 100%, because the ways that we approach working with the sensations and the body and emotions, specifically the sensation-based approach that we use, helps people to become more witness and more, shall we say, conscious to what's going on with themselves in a way that's profound. They can watch and witness their patterns and their behavior and their thoughts and their words and their bodies and all of that mindfully in a profound way when we use the sensation-based skills.
Yeah. I also think about mindfulness really falls under that somatic practices umbrella, if you want to think about it like that. And the way I process or think about somatic practices and mindfulness is they're amazing things to do to help us regulate our nervous system, to feel more grounded, to feel more present, to detach from unhelpful thoughts and emotions, to be less reactive. Like all those things are really, really critical. And when we do those things, we often will get kind of a general improvement in our lives, And that's really awesome. You don't necessarily get a specific improvement in your lives when you're doing somatic practices.
Right.
You get a general improvement, which is really important, but you don't necessarily get a specific improvement. So the way I think about mindfulness is, if you're a mindfulness professional, if you love using mindfulness and you're doing with people and your folks are feeling more grounded, more stable, yes, awesome. Now, if you want to be able to kind of use mindfulness as a more focused or intentional, precise way to help someone change a behavior or a belief about themselves, that's where you go into the somatic coaching or sensation-based motivation coaching practices.
100%. Boy, that's a really good way to put it. I'm also reminded that not all mindfulness practitioners are trauma-informed, and we are here.
Yep.
So that's, I think, super important.
Yeah, super important.
So we definitely, there's re-traumatization that can happen when you're doing mindfulness work with people that some practitioners don't know how to deal with when they're not trauma-informed, trauma-sensitive practitioners.
Yeah, and there's some easy things that you can do up front ahead of time to ensure that you keep people safe.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that leads to our next question then from our wellness coaching professionals is, how do I become trauma-informed?
Yeah, well, we're actually putting together some really cool programming coming up this year for people who want to trauma inform their practice.
Yeah, so we're putting together some standalone programming to help you get trauma inform your practice. So keep your eyes out for that, for sure.
One of the things people don't understand really in terms of the trauma levels is a lot of people are looking for becoming trauma informed. Like that might be what they Google, but what they're really asking for, Brian, is how do I become trauma sensitive?
Yeah, exactly.
So you want to make sure that you know what terms you're using so that you can get the proper support that you're looking for. And you can look back on the podcast. I don't know what episode it is, but we do talk about the different levels of trauma.
Four levels of trauma practice. Yeah.
So check that out if this is important to you.
Yeah, for sure. And just to say too, going through all of our levels, level 1, 2, and 3, that's how you become trauma informed, is by going, it's all baked into the program that we do. So. All right, next question. Okay. Will a beginner course in somatic coaching help me get clients better results quickly?
A beginner
course. Will a beginner course in somatic coaching help me get clients better results quickly?
Well, I think that's kind of an interesting question, because what are we talking about when we talk about beginner courses? I mean, if we're talking about a more beginner course for us, we're talking about our level 1 program. And the answer is heck yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think about it. A beginner course is better than no course. Let's put it that way first. So if you're like, do I do this or don't I do this? Is a beginner course worth it? Well, a beginner course is better than not taking any course at all. And then we just have to have an expectation of like, what do you mean by getting better results quickly? Like how better are you looking for?
Right. And we were talking about that trajectory of the sustainable results.
Yeah. So a beginner course will help you get better results quickly, but just be mindful of how grand those results might be. A beginner course probably isn't going to help you create a whole new transformation in your clients' lives. that's probably not going to happen. But a beginner course, like our somatic practice essentials course, will certainly help you get better results with someone having a better regulated nervous system, better sleep, less stress, less
better
anxiety.
performance, better
Yeah, those
motivation,
kinds
more
of things. So you'll
energy.
definitely get results in those frameworks for sure.
Yeah. I like how you answered that, Brian. Like, get started. If you have interest with somatic stuff, get started. Even our on-demand programs are, quick, and boy, they're going to give you such great ideas for how to get started. Just get going,
Yeah,
get
get
started.
going, and you'll have a little bit of results at a time as you go through.
Somatic work, one of the things I love about it is it really is like dipping your toes into the mysteries of the universe. And there's so much to learn and explore and to be interested about ourselves and the work that we're doing with others. It's so fascinating and interesting. It is not going to be a bore.
Yeah. Just keep in mind how the results match your investment level of your time
Yeah.
and your practice and those kinds of
And
things.
listen, keep that in consideration whether you're going to study with us or you're going to study somewhere else, because the amount of time that you're taking, the monetary investment that you're taking, the energetic investment that you're taking, all of those considerations help to understand what kind of practitioner you're going to be on the other side. So if you're expecting to put in a little energy, a little money, a little time, you're not going to be able to create the profound depth of transformation that if you were to put in more energy, more time, more money, and those kinds of resources into your training, because of course you would create more sustainable, more profound transformations when that's just the natural laws and how they work. You put a certain amount of energy in, certain amount of energy comes out.
Yeah, and when you dip your toes into the beginnings of the somatic work, anything you put in there, you're going to be helpful to people. So I want to say that too. So just get started on that trajectory, like Ani was saying.
Especially in this world, we definitely
Need more of it. Need more of it. Okay, next question from our wellness coaches is, what's the best way to integrate somatic techniques into my current coaching structure?
That's a good question. So to begin to do that, well, we have students do it a number of different ways. I mean, we have students who come in who already have established coaching structures that they really love. And then by the end of the certification programs, they've kind of wiped them out and they're using the structure that we've put in place here. We also have people who have established practices and then they just kind of put in tools and practices within the context of what they're already doing. So we see people do all number of things. I mean, we have processes that we teach here. It's not that we're just kind of tossing tools at you. We have processes and we help you to kind of like Legos, like put one Lego to the next Lego to the next Lego, but you can also use the Legos. So even the short tools have a process that's associated with them. So you can take the tool or you can take the whole process.
Yeah. I actually have two places where I think somatic techniques can be really quickly introduced into current coaching structures for wellness coaches.
Yeah.
So one, the first place is in terms of emotional regulation. So imagine you're a wellness coach, and if you're a wellness coach, you're working with people who want to probably feel more joy in their life, more gratitude, feel healthier, feel lighter, feel more vibrant, feel more vital, more energy, right? All those things. And oftentimes what can get in the way of that is life. Like life can just feel like you're on a rocking boat some days, which knocks people off of their regulation. And then they find themselves spinning and depressed or anxious or spun out or burned out or whatever it is, right? And now they're not going in the direction they want to go. So somatic techniques can very quickly and readily be used to help someone rebalance their emotional regulation. We actually did a whole podcast on that. I don't remember what number it was. Look back there for moving from emotional dysregulation to emotional regulation.
Yeah, that was a
very in-depth podcast we did on working through those. But that's, I think, one place where wellness professionals can very quickly use somatic techniques. The next place is when resistance to change comes up. So again, you're a wellness professional and someone's hired you to help them work out. Say you're a fitness professional and the plan is 3 days a week. You get them to the gym, and then on their off days, there to do something on their own, let's say. That's a part of the plan. And when you talk to them on their off days, they're like, no, I didn't do it again. This came up, that came up. I couldn't do it here. I couldn't do it there. I was just too tired. I was just too hot. I was just too cold. I was just too sweaty. I was just too tired, whatever it is. And then finally you start to realize you're like, wow, this person's actually avoiding doing the thing that they said. So that's resistance to change. So if you had some somatic techniques, you can actually help people navigate quickly through that resistance to change, which will reduce your frustration and reduce their frustration to help them move through. So that's the two places I think the somatic techniques can be most quickly integrated into current coaching structures.
Yeah, so catch yourself if you think you have an ideal client issue because you just seem to attract these people who can't get it done. That's a key thing that we see when people add the somatic practices and tools. Like it's not an ideal client issue. You just don't have all the tools that you could have in your toolbox to be able to help them move forward. Just like you were saying, another kind of key sign to watch out for is that accountability, right? Like we're taught how to, as coaches, put in accountability measures. And when clients have difficulty with that, one of the things that we notice here is that it's hard for a human to be accountable to themselves when they really don't embody full choice. And it's one of the things that we work on is to help a person become a person who actually can become accountable to themselves and to others in really safe and powerful ways.
Great. Love it. Okay. Next question. How can somatic coaching help my clients manage stress and emotional overwhelm?
So one of the ways that we talk, I'll just take the emotion part because it's my favorite. One of the things that we do here at the Somatic Coaching Academy is we use a sensation-based approach. And why that's one of the reasons that's important is because out there in the world, traditional approaches usually talk about emotions without acknowledging that emotions are two things. So the feelings that we feel in our body and where the narratives and the stories and the conditioning that's associated with the feelings that we feel in our bodies. So it can be so unbelievably helpful, powerful, and really fulfilling as a coach to use the sensation-based approaches for emotional stuff, because we actually kind of go in the back door rather than headlong into the stories and the narratives that are all wrapped up in the feelings. And we really focus in on the sensations that people feel. And it is just incredibly effective.
Yep. So when we help people work with the sensations directly, it results in better emotional regulation, less emotional overwhelm.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And then what about managing stress? Well, stress is, I think I maybe answered this in a previous question, if not a previous podcast, is that what stress really is, it's number one, it's a perception of threat, right? For some reason, our subconscious mind is perceiving threat. So we have a stress response in our body. Stress is a physiological response to a perceived threat. So in our body, we have this stress response. So somatic practices are great to be able to begin to balance the autonomic nervous system in a way where you are bringing that sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems back into balance again, which reduces the stress and also would reduce emotional overwhelm. Now, with that said, somatic practices are also a gateway into deeper work to reframe deeper patterns that are causing the perception of threat to begin with.
Yep.
And we really need to go through that doorway to get into the deeper levels of doing the somatic. Somatic practices are really a gateway to working into those deeper levels if you have the knowledge to do that sort of thing. So that's kind of how I would think about managing stress and, of course, emotional overwhelm.
I've always appreciated how you teach and talk about stress, Brian, because you really come from this, like you were saying, balance your nervous system kind of place rather than trying to manage or reduce stress, which I think puts us kind of at a defensive with life rather than understanding life's going to continue to show up and how do I dance with it? How do I navigate with the stress that's inevitable as part of life experience?
Yeah. And stress is really interesting because it's experience that we're having internally. And of course, it's also relational to the environment too. So it's never just one or the other. A lot of times we can think that my stress is being caused from something outside of me without realizing that the way I am perceiving what's going on outside of me is what's actually causing the physiological response internally. Now, that doesn't excuse what's going on outside of us. We can still make changes to what's going on outside of us to help our internally balanced. And often it's easier to make the changes outside of us when we're internally balanced. And it's more challenging to make the changes outside of us in functional ways when we're not balanced internally.
Yeah.
Anyway, so cool. All right, next question. Does our certification include guidance on marketing my services as a somatic coach? I'll toss this thing one to you.
Yeah, and I'll one better than that, because a lot of wellness coaching and stuff like that has some kind of marketing component that we see just doesn't work. So we teach you how to actually have conversations with clients, to actually engage in behavior as a business owner that moves your business forward. So we're going to one better you than, making sure you have a website or social media following, which okay, if you want to do that. And we just don't see that it translates into actually having a business. We want to make sure you actually have a business that actually has clients, that you actually, at the end of the day, get to say, I helped people. And that's what we're going to help you do. Not create a bunch of, stuff that you don't need, or that, the marketers think that you need. We're going to help you be really smart about it so that you can spend your time doing the thing that you love to do, which is helping people.
Yeah. And that really comes through having really compassionate conversations with people about what their goals are, what's important to them, where they want to move through, what their challenges are. We have a whole conversation process that we teach our students to help enroll ourselves and them into a partnership to help them meet their goals.
So there's continued support in the community, like a lot of continued support in the community after you take any of our programs, because you're in the virtual network and you can ask questions of the community, your colleagues, the instructors, about anything in terms of growing your business. So that's there, but we also want to let you know that there is a robust amount of information about building your business in the level 1 and the level 3 programs specifically. There's a lot of real turnkey things in the level 1 program. Like, people all the time tell us when they take that program, like, you've thought of everything. And let me tell you, if we haven't thought of it and somebody brings something up, we put it in there. So yeah, there's just tons of turnkey. You're going to be able to take it and just go. And then there's more advanced business building professional things in the Somatic Coach Professional. That's why we call it that program, to help you really become a professional doing these things.
Yeah. So you must have a little bit of ESP going on in, because that was the last question actually that our listeners asked us, is what kind of support network or community will I have access to during and after certification?
You'll have a network of community who has ESP. You'll be able to guess ahead of time. And I'm kind of not kidding, because the kinds of relationships that people develop here at the Somatic Coaching Academy are kind of the you read my mind kind of relationships that happen. We have a tremendous amount of support here, because here's the thing, folks, we're not an organization that's just going to keep tossing content at you. Yeah, we have plenty of content. You're going to get content, but really transformation happens through community. It happens through relationships. And we think about that anytime we do anything here at the Academy. So we're always thinking about how we can put you in just the right match with the support that you need and the people that you need to be able to make the transformations that you want.
Yeah. I mean, we are really committed at, there's such a need right now in the world for people to have the support, to feel like they're in safe spaces, to feel like they can move into the world in ways that are productive and effective and loving and compassionate and empathetic and all the things that people, I think, and harmonious, and they have a sense of inner peace. Like, that's really a massive driving force that people are looking for right now in the world. And in order to do that, there needs to be people like you that are actually helping people do that. That's really, really important. And so for us, this idea of continuing to add value and support to our community of graduates, as well as the current students, is really important to us. And you were just mentioning about upgrading and adding materials to our vaults and those kinds of things. And I'm laughing here to myself, thinking I have this sickness that I have this compulsion to continue adding value into the vault. I've got a whole day planned coming up to record a whole bunch of physiology lectures for the Somatic Practice Essentials vault that we're just going to dump in there, because we want people to feel like they have the resources to be able to keep bringing this stuff into the world in more powerful ways.
Brian's actually not kidding. Like, we've literally created this company based on the fact that we just can't stand it. Every day we wake up wondering how we can add value to your life. And the more that this thing grows and the bigger that the network and community get, the more that other people are also in service of that mission of waking up every day and asking how we can support each other and how we can add value into each other's lives. Caught a quick glance into the virtual network before we got started recording today, and I saw some posts saying specifically that, like, every day people are getting in there and benefiting from the relationships that we're creating here at the Academy. So we would really love to, if you're not a part already of the community here, we'd love to meet you and have you be a part of that wonderful wealth of abundance. And hey, if we didn't answer your question today, we want to. So make sure to reach out to us at info@somaticcoachingacademy.com. Let us know what your question is and we'll answer it. We love to talk. We love to talk to you. So let us know if you have any questions we didn't answer. And of course, check out other podcasts because there's just a whole bunch of goodness in there as well. And the Somatic Coaching Academy library. And until we see you next time, we hope that this podcast was a real benefit for you.
So have an amazing day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope that this conversation will help you improve your practice and change the way you think about your work, your clients, and yourself.
Continue your exploration of trauma-sensitive somatic coaching by listening to more podcast episodes at somaticcoachingacademy.com. You could be the trusted guide that people turn to help them with their most challenging situations and to reach their most precious goals. Thank you for joining us.
We'll see you next time.